whenever you're ready. We cannot regain control of Urdak without the Seraphim's help. You broke the seal when you awakened the icon of sin in their world. The balance between their two dimensions has been broken with the demons now in control of Urdak.
Portal ready in 3, 2...
After a mere 8 months, id Software has delivered the first major story expansion to Doom Eternal, The Ancient Gods Part 1. The Ancient Gods contains 3 new levels, new cutscenes, new story, and even new enemies, and I loved every second of it. Doom Eternal, The Ancient Gods Part 1 is a doubling down on everything that made the original Doom Eternal experience great. It serves as both a fuck you to critics and a love letter to fans to deliver what honestly might be the very best Doom experience ever. The Ancient Gods Part 1 starts you off with every gun and every rune available, with exception of the Crucible, which Doom Guy no longer has because of story reasons. The first room opens with a Mancubus leading into 2 Arachnotrons and 2 Hell Knights. This immediately leads into another room with a Dread Knight, a Mancubus, and a Carcass, and this sets the tone for the entirety of the next 3 levels. These levels are the hardest ones of Doom Eternal yet. They are unrelenting, and they all feel like master levels. Every time something happens that makes you go, holy shit, that was intense, something happens in the very next room that just ups it in every way. What did we do to piss id off? When I say doubling down on Doom Eternal, I mean it. It's like they made a checklist of everything that people bitched about when the game came out and said, alright, fuck you then. Thought Doom Eternal was too hard? It dialed up the difficulty to 11. Better pay attention, because not only is there more heavy and super heavies, but more fodder too. Succumb to tunnel vision, and even a fodder enemy will sneak up behind you and ruin your day. Think the Marauder was too hard? Well, fuck you, here's 2 of them. And here's one buffed by a totem. And here's one at the same time as a Cyber Demon. Don't like the Tentacle? Well, here's a giant one. And fuck you, they're all over the Blood Swamp, and they're in the fog, so you can't see them. The Whiplash is too hard? Well, now they're invisible, meaning you can't kill them with lock-on rockets, and you can't meat hook them. Don't like the platforming? Well, we're filling these levels with platforming, and you need to do it fast so this fog doesn't catch up with you, too. Always running out of ammo? Well, fuck you, every encounter has twice as many demons as the base game. Better get used to managing ammo. Hated the purple goo? Well, now there's these bubble things that burst and not only slow you down like the goo did, but they damage you too. And they're around during intense combat sections. Didn't like the art direction? Level design not realistic enough for you? Well, here's literally a spooky swamp out of a 90s platforming game, and we go to heaven again. Not a fan of combat arenas? Well, fuck you, we'll load this thing full of them, and make them really small so you can't run around too much. And throw a Marauder in there too for good measure. Think Doom Eternal was too restrictive and forced you to play a certain way? Well, now there's a new enemy that actually requires a specific gun to kill. And it's the microwave mod that most people don't like too. I know they did this as a tribute to Ghostbusters, but I also can't help but think that they used this mod specifically because people think it's useless. Well, you better get used to using it. Used to relying on the Crucible as a panic weapon against harder enemies? Well, now it's gone. Better get used to using your arsenal and managing your ice bomb. If you're smart, you'll save the BFG and Unmaker ammo for these encounters. Hated the swimming in Terrace Nevada? Well, fuck you, go swim with a shark. While each of these things might annoy other people or put people off because they're making the experience harder, less casual friendly, I personally loved it. I loved that they didn't make it easier to appease a casual audience. They know what the Doom fanbase wants, and they played into that. We wanted bigger, harder, faster, more chaotic, and they delivered. The Doom dance has never felt so good. So let's break down these 3 levels, the new enemies, and some of the new mechanics. The first level is the UAC Atlantica. This level takes place on a UAC ship out in the middle of the ocean. This level has the most grounded design to it. The environments are all bleak blues and grays, steel walls and floors, science labs, typical UAC looking stuff. Like I already said, the level starts off strong with this opening combat encounter that rarely ever stops. Between arenas, there are some platforming spots with these boxes and some swimming segments. This level also features some key hunting and some non-linear exploration like through here, but for the most part the level is essentially another Final Sin, where it sends everything at you and expects you to have already mastered the mechanics of the game. I know you can technically play this as a standalone, but I really don't recommend it. You'll get more out of this DLC if you've already played through the main game a couple of times. This is because the DLC will kick your ass, even if you're good at Doom Eternal. I'm a pretty good player. I play on Nightmare. I haven't finished it on Ultra Nightmare yet, but I'd still say I'm pretty good. I don't struggle at all with the main game, and usually my deaths are because I did something careless. But I'm not going to lie, I struggled with some parts of this DLC. There is some straight up 90s level assholery in this expansion. Stuff that would have felt right at home in add-ons like Final Doom or the Doom 2 master levels from the original Doom releases. It forced me to become an even better player, and upon repeat playthroughs, I'm surprised I've gotten even better at this game. Consciously adding additional guns to my weapon combos, not relying on things like the Crucible to get me out of trouble, using the Flame Belch early to pull ammo more often, using the Ice Bomb more effectively, and utilizing guns I often neglected really helped me improve. Honestly, if I had the patience for the start and stop, I have no doubt in my mind I could beat Doom Eternal on Ultra Nightmare now. The DLC really pushed me to improve. One thing I noticed is that when the DLC started, I was not playing very well in the first encounter. Now part of it was I took a month off from Eternal to play some horror games. I needed to get back into the swing of things a little bit, but another thing was that the runes reset to default, and I wasn't using my main rune loadout. It made me realize that I had become way too reliant on these runes, especially aerial mobility. It felt like I was playing another game without it. If id took these away, I would have really struggled. This first level, we're met with some great combat arenas, this Cyber Demon hallway and the infamously teased Double Marauder segment. The combat arenas were all great, super fun, challenging, really pushed myself. The Double Marauder really shouldn't have been a problem, but for my first time playing through it, I really struggled for some reason. One Marauder doesn't really give me trouble at all, and I usually kill them in seconds, but for whatever reason, I couldn't focus on two at once. Upon repeat playthroughs, I'm better at it, but it really messed me up the first time. And that is an easy part considering the rest of the DLC. The only new enemy addition from this first level was the eyeball turrets. These things pop out and shoot you from afar. You can only damage them by shooting them in the eye. Of course, using the ballista or scoped heavy cannon is the best method for taking them out. I typically use the ballista for sniping in the main game, but I've started to use the heavy cannon more for things like this. The heavy cannon is probably my least used gun overall. I typically only use it early in the game to help eliminate enemy weak points and utilize the micro missiles. But once I get the chain gun, rocket launcher, and ballista, I rarely use the heavy cannon. The lock-on rockets replace the micro missiles. The ballista acts as my new sniping weapon, and the chain gun is my new fast-firing gun. At least that's how I typically play. I keep it allocated over on the 0 key because I don't use it often. And the precision scope is probably my second least used gun mod. The only gun mod I use less is the chain gun shield. But I felt really encouraged to use the heavy cannon and quickscope more in the Ancient Gods, especially so I could preserve ballista ammo during combat encounters. I'm trying to use the heavy cannon more. The second level, the Blood Swamps, ramps up the difficulty even more. This level features some of the hardest combat encounters in the entire game, featuring things like double cyber demons that lead into double barons, which lead into more barons, double archviles while a doom hunter is out. There are these small arenas inside of spirit dog bubbles. Step outside the bubble and you'll take damage. You have to fight a marauder in one of these. They send a bunch of carcasses too, sometimes like 6 at a time, so get ready to avoid getting stuck on their shields. A big challenge in the Blood Swamps are these narrower arenas, like fighting a baron here. There's not a lot of room to run or jump around. Your movements need to be more precise and deliberate. This level also features the buffed marauder, powered up by a buff totem stuck behind a cage. The cage will only lift once he dies. I found this fight easier than the double marauders, to be completely honest. This level is also where the highly anticipated spirit enemy is introduced. Spirits are basically what the summoners from Doom 2016 have become. Instead of summoning enemies like in Doom 2016, they take on an ethereal form that possesses other demons. These possessed demons are much faster and stronger. They have crazy damage resistance and cannot be frozen with the ice bombs. Possessed demons are a huge danger. I especially struggled with possessed barons. They stay right on your ass and don't give you any breathing room. Mess up at all and it's game over. When you kill a possessed baron, it pops and you're given a short window where you need to zap the spirit with the plasma gun's microwave beam. As mentioned before, this is a reference to the Ghostbusters movies. It really adds a lot of stress and tension trying to quickly dispose of these things while also trying to avoid incoming attacks from other demons. Fail to kill it fast enough and it will possess a new demon and you need to start the cycle all over. Oftentimes possessing another heavy or super heavy demon, which will give you a huge challenge. Luckily, I haven't run into any possessed Doom Hunters, Archviles, or Marauders yet, but possessed Cyber Demons and Barons are a huge pain. The possessed demons really change up the Doom dance and it really impacted my personal playstyle. I typically use the Ballista a lot. I'm very much a Super Shotgun Ballista Rocket Launcher main kind of player. I also like to use the Plasma Gun a lot, both mods, and try to take advantage of the stun animations using the microwave beam against larger demons. But when possessed demons are in the arena, I feel hesitant to use the Ballista and Plasma Gun, because I don't want to be caught running out of Plasma Gun ammo when the spirit pops. Needing to completely alter my playstyle to avoid using the Ballista took a while to get used to. The Blood Swamps are also full of platforming sections, falling platforms, spinning fire spires, and these sections where you need to finish a course before raising smoke gets you. None of these parts were really too challenging and gave a brief moment of reprieve from the constant assault of demons. I also really like the platforming sections because you can zip around the environments. It's really fun to zip around the level and use the meat hook to launch off enemies. It just lets you fly all over, even skipping some smaller fights. Mobility like this is why I love Doom Eternal, and the platforming sections really let that mobility shine. The level ends with a boss fight. You need to shoot the eyes with these big stone cubes, and then punch them into the shield in the center, all while enemies are attacking you. The hardest part of this boss is that the eyes fire shots which slow you, leaving you open to attack, but keep moving and focus on the eyes, taking out the Pinkies and Hell Knights if they get too close, and it really isn't all that hard. The last level is the Holt. You return to Urdak. This is the hardest level in the entire game. The arenas are brutal. The enemies are relentless. In this level, you'll run into things like a Marauder and Cyber Demon at the same time, 3 Barons at once, and things like 2 Cyber Demons at once. One is possessed, and that spawns a Doom Hunter once one dies. This level also introduces yet another new enemy, the Bloodmaker. I fucking hate the Bloodmakers. They are my public enemy number 1, and the enemy I struggle the most with fighting against. They are shielded unless attacking, meaning you cannot hurt them unless they are attacking you. When they attack, they have a brief moment of vulnerability. You need to pull off a headshot to kill them, and the target is very small. They do a good chunk of damage too, and their attacks slow, leaving you open to attack from other demons as well. This slowing attack really messed me up. It threw off my momentum, it resulted in a lot of frustrating deaths, and I started trying to rush to kill them so that I wouldn't have to worry about the slowdown. And because I was rushing, I got sloppy and missed a lot of my shots. In addition to the combat encounters, the Holt has a decent amount of platforming as well, including punching trees to create new platforms. The Holt ends with a boss fight against the Seraphim. This boss is so hard. He teleports all over, does massive damage, has a small window to be shot, and summons these electrified eyeballs which do large amounts of damage, as well as bloodmakers and possessed demons. The final phase is especially difficult as he summons a possessed Dread Knight and possessed Pain Elemental at the same time. I really struggled with this last phase the first time through. I need to develop better strategies to deal with possessed demons. All three of these levels also have secret encounters and Slayer Gates. The Slayer Gates give access to support runes instead of maker keys. These support runes act exactly like normal runes, except you can only equip one. These runes give you things like a boost to the blood punch when you're close to death, one that lets you steal a life back if you quickly kill the demon that killed you if you had an extra life, and the third one creates a shockwave that damages enemies when you destroy a weak point. Personally, my favorite was the weak point shockwave, and that's the one I primarily used. All in all, I really liked these three levels. They were perfectly challenging, even if frustrating at times, but it's exactly what I wanted out of the DLC. The level designs were perfectly crafted, fitting the world as well as providing the player a lot of fun while introducing some new ideas as well. I honestly can't wait to see what id throws at us with Part 2. The last major mechanic I want to discuss was, due to the lack of the Crucible, I felt that the BFG and Unmaker were much more useful in this DLC. In the main game, I more so used these guns for fun, or in very specific encounters. But in this DLC, I was a little more liberal with their usage. Their ammo is still scarce, so it's not like you can spam them or use them often, but they definitely acted more as panic button weapons for me. I found them most useful in these two arenas, the part in the Blood Swamps with the two Archviles. A quick BFG shot instantly kills an Archvile. Just dash over, kill one, and dash over to the second to kill him. And the Archviles are no longer a worry. If you're lucky, the Tendrils or Splash will hit the Doom Hunter too. And I found the Unmaker useful against possessed demons, which can tank a BFG shot, and in this part with the three Barons. Being able to kill all three with the Unmaker was definitely helpful. The Ancient Gods isn't perfect though. I did run into a couple of bugs. For one, I got stuck on the level geometry pretty often. This would result in me taking some unnecessary damage or even dying. It was really annoying and happened in a couple of different areas. I also ran into a bug where after collecting the third support rune, my second support rune, the one that reclaims lost lives, disappeared and was unusable. I can't go back to get it again, so I'll have to restart the DLC to get it again. I also didn't really like the dive suit. It's stupid and didn't make sense. Doomguy can breathe on the surface of Mars, he can swim in Terras Nabad, and he can swim in the blood swamps without the need of the dive suit. I know Terras Nabad and the blood swamps rectify this issue by having the hazard suit because the water is toxic, but I just think it's weird that Doomguy can breathe outside on Mars, yet needs a suit to swim in the ocean. It's just weird to me. Also, you can't punch the shark, 0 out of 10. Before I close up, I just wanted to discuss the story and lore a little bit. Now, I'm not a big story and lore guy. I don't read the codex. There are other channels that discuss the story and lore better and more detailed than I am. The Ancient Gods picks up where Doom Eternal left off. Doomguy goes to retrieve the Seraphim's body, who is revealed to be Samuel Hayden. Shocker. Doomguy is then tasked with going and destroying a soul sphere for the Dark Lord. Doomguy finds both the soul sphere for the Father, now Vega, and for the Dark Lord. Instead of destroying the Dark Lord's sphere, he destroys the Father's, and takes the Dark Lords to Holt. At the Holt, the Seraphim, Hayden, turns on Doomguy once again. Doomguy defeats him, and the Dark Lord appears, a being that looks exactly like Doomguy, and it ends with this as a cliffhanger. Why does he look exactly like Doomguy? I can't wait to see how they wrap this up in part 2, but that got me thinking. While I personally consider Doom 3 a prequel, it's the only game that id hasn't officially said is canon or not. It'd be really cool to see if the Dark Lord is related to Betruger or the Maledict or something like that. There are some other Doom 3 references as well. In the Blood Swamps, there are areas called Betruger Castle and Ishi Keep. This is a reference to Dr. Betruger and Dr. Ishi from Doom 3. Again, none of this is definitive proof, but it's more evidence to support my claim that Doom 3 is a prequel to Doom 1. The Ancient Gods Part 1 is a perfect love letter to fans. It's a collection of 3 well-crafted levels that provide challenge to the player and introduce new mechanics, while simultaneously reinforcing mechanics of the original Doom Eternal. It's a doubling down of everything that makes Doom Eternal such an amazing game. I cannot wait to see what Part 2 has in store for us. I can only imagine that it will get harder and even more insane. Rip and tear, my friends, until it is done.
Portal coordinates set for Urdak in the 6th region of the Equestrian Holt.
All right, ready for launch, Doomguy. I'm sorry.